I'm building a little log house. It's a technique I wanted to try for a long time because I think it's a really interesting and beautiful style of building something. I needed to learn how to handle a chainsaw for that, also how to put all these logs in and over each other, and how to move them about, which is not an easy thing to do for only one man alone. Also, I'm curious about how we'll get the logs up the building once it's higher without a crane. I'm about 5 rows in, and as I realized by now, this is going to be a lot of work, but also a lot of fun. And it's a great work for the winter time where there is not much else to do in the garden, although it can get really cold. Also, a big advantage of wood over building with concrete or mortar or glue is that you can do it at almost any temperature. And if you want to have a quick overview about all the steps required to put a new log onto the wall, you can watch this video, which shows all, I think, 25 steps within just 2 minutes. There even are formulas to calculate the diameter of the next log. For this you have to know the shoulder height of the last one, which is this distance here. Then, interestingly, the average diameter of all the logs you have in store, and also if a thinner or a thicker log goes up next, but more on that later. So before starting, I added all the bigger and all the smaller ends and divided each by the total number of logs, labeling each log with a number and noting it in a spreadsheet to keep the overview. Here the formulas would tell me to use one with this diameter, though I won't strictly follow the rules here because I want the new log to project this one just a little, because I want to put a long, thin one all over this next side. Yeah, this happens when you do not protect your logs properly from rain. They get dark, and now I have to sand them every time before being able to use the scribers. A little silly, I know. These are pine and they smell so good when cut. I hope the building maintains this wonderful scent. The smell comes from the resin which the tree forms for protection and healing wounds. It contains compounds like terpenes that smell great and provide the benefit of making the wood more water resistant. That's where pine or other softwood, like for example larch, are great for outdoor building. Stay. Yeah. Alright. Okay, the rough notches have been cut. The gap is now almost the same size all the way along the log. In order to make them fit, I now have to copy the shape of the lower one straight up onto this log. And that's when some smart person came up with scribers. I'm looking for the biggest gap now. Seems to be right here. That means I want to get the log about 7 centimeters lower. This edge is adjusted perfectly plumb, so when I set my scribers against them, I can calibrate them, making the tips perfectly plumb as well. But I do not only cut a tunnel out of this one, I also sink the new log onto the one below. So I need to cut a groove along the whole log. First of all, for the wall to have a certain thickness, this building is not going to be heated, so there is not a lot of insulation needed, but it should stay at least above freezing temperatures. Then of course for stability and for the rain to better flow off on the outside. Building is basically a fight against water. When organic materials like wood, straw or loam get wet, decay begins through microorganisms or bugs or the like, and with mineral matter like rocks or cement-bound materials, weathering and frost heave are the problem. Therefore, it's important to have a high foundation to keep wood away from the ground, to have some kind of sheet to prevent water of being sucked in between the wood and the rocks, to have the logs overlapping along the length, and to finally protect the building with a big roof overhang. Built right, log houses can last for centuries. There are log houses here in Austria much older than 500 years. In the meantime, I put on 2 more logs. As you can see, there are also some cuts on the top side of each log. One is the saddles, which are just a preparation for the next one and make scribing and notching it over easier. And the other one is this curve cut. A curve cut is basically just a deep cut along the length of the log, and you do this because over the next 5 years or so the logs will shrink in diameter, and doing this they will crack, and this crack almost always goes from the center to the nearest cut from it. So by doing this curve cut you encourage the log to crack on top where it is protected by the next log above. Otherwise this crack would develop on the underside, which is not that good for the fit and stability of the building. Shrinking will also close the gaps you might still see between some logs, as the weight over the years will shift from the corners to the walls. I'm also doing some research right now what I can put into the gaps as an insulation material. I'd like to do some natural things like hemp or wool, or maybe even moss, and do not have to resort to synthetic stuff. But if you know something about that or have a tip for me, please tell me in the comments. On to the next one. And the stability from the whole thing comes only from the shape of the logs themselves. No screws, no glue, no mortar needed. Ooh. At least it's a wind protection already. It's only 3 days later, the snow is melting. I'm working on row number 8 and already starting to have problems getting the logs up the wall without any aids. An important thing to watch building a log house is that each log is tapered, so it has a bigger butt and a smaller tip, meaning that you have to alternate the logs each row. So the walls go butt, tip, butt, tip, butt, tip, always alternating, and the corners therefore go butt, butt, tip, tip, butt, butt, tip, tip, and so on. The most frequent problem occurs when you want to notch a small tip over a butt, leaving a big shoulder. But keeping that in mind and knowing your logs helps to keep shoulders small and always have a big enough tip to go over them. You can also use a set of log building formulas like I did here. They are easy to use and keep you out of trouble. I got them from this book, Log Construction Manual, the best I could find on the subject. I will link it below the video. At the door there is no shoulder at all, so I built myself a little jig to temporarily hold up the loose ends. I still got a piece of rafter cut out for a skylight window. I freed it from the attached boards. Cut out triangles. Drilled a hole through the center of each. And connected them with a threaded rod for steplessly adjusting the height at which the log is held. Okay, that's how I planned to work my way up over the door and under the roof, but that's the stuff for a next video about DIYing a garden shed log house. Thanks for watching and see you next time.